Welcome to the dairies of science fiction, where extraordinary stories come to life. Enjoy the journey. Consciousness returned the way a badly calibrated machine rebooted. Slowly, with flickering awareness and a strong suspicion that something had gone wrong in a very expensive way. Sound came first, a soft rhythmic hum that felt less like noise and more like the idea of noise, as if the room itself was politely reminding him that it existed. Light followed, pale and diffuse, pressing against his eyelids without the decency to ask permission. He tried to move and discovered that his body had filed a formal complaint and refused to cooperate. His first coherent thought was that he was dead. His second was that if this was the afterlife, it had terrible interior design. The ceiling above him was not a ceiling in any Earth-approved sense. It curved in subtle, unsettling ways, its surface shifting faintly as if breathing. Thin lines of light moved across it like lazy constellations, rearranging themselves every few seconds. Somewhere nearby, something beeped with the confidence of a machine that knew exactly what it was doing. He did not share that confidence. Panic attempted to rise, tripped over the sedative still swimming in his bloodstream, and fell down a flight of mental stairs. He settled instead for confusion. Confusion felt safer. He became aware of a sensation in his right hand. Warmth, pressure. Not the cold clamp of a restraint or the invasive grip of alien technology, but something unmistakably gentle. Fingers, slender ones, wrapped around his own as if they had always been there and were mildly offended by the idea of leaving. This did not fit any abduction scenario he had mentally rehearsed. He tested the feeling by twitching his fingers. The response was immediate. The grip tightened, reflexive, protective. Whoever was holding his hand was real, very real, and apparently asleep because no one yanked away in alarm or shouted in an unpronounceable alien language. Against his better judgment, he opened his eyes. The room came into focus piece by piece. Smooth walls that glowed faintly with internal circuitry. Instruments hovering without visible support, projecting translucent data that scrolled too fast for him to read. A medical chamber, unmistakably so, though it had been designed by beings who clearly believed right angles were an optional lifestyle choice. Then he saw her. She sat beside the bed in a simple, pale uniform posture, slightly slumped, head tilted forward in sleep. Her face was undeniably womanly, soft and expressive even at rest, but her ears extended gracefully from her hair, long and elegant, tapering to gentle points. They twitched faintly as she breathed, reacting to dreams he could not guess at. A nurse, his brain supplied helpfully, choosing the least alarming option available. As if summoned by the thought, she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, met his, and widened in immediate spectacular horror. Her ears flushed a deep, unmistakable color, and she made a small sound halfway between a gasp and a squeak. "Oh," she said, voice light and musical and entirely too close. "You're awake." Somewhere in the back of his mind, a rational voice suggested asking where he was, how he got here, and whether his insurance covered interstellar incidents. Instead, he looked down at their joined hands and croaked, "I can explain." She followed his gaze. Her face went even warmer, and then, inexplicably, she giggled. She did not let go of his hand. This fact settled between them with more weight than the hovering machines and the softly chiming monitors combined. Her giggle lingered awkwardly, as if it too had realized it might be inappropriate and was deciding whether to apologize. He was painfully aware that he was lying in an alien medical bed, attached to devices that definitely did not come from any hospital back home. And yet the most alarming thing in the room was how normal her touch felt. "You can explain," she said quickly, then added, "or not. Explanations are optional during post-recovery cognitive fog." Her translator hesitated on the last phrase, briefly projecting the words asterisk brain soup into the air before correcting itself. She winced. "It's still learning. That makes two of us," he muttered. His voice sounded rough, as though it had been borrowed from someone older and less hydrated. "Am I supposed to be here?" Yes, she said immediately, too immediately. Her ears flicked, betraying her. I mean, yes, you are medically authorized to be here. You arrived unconscious after the neural acclimation phase. Your species tends to faint. She smiled apologetically, as if humans collapsing during advanced interstellar procedures was a mildly embarrassing habit like snoring. I fainted, he repeated. In space. Very impressively, she assured him. You even tried to apologize to the floor. He closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing this. When he opened them again, she was still there, still holding his hand. He tested his fingers again, more deliberately this time. She noticed immediately and straightened, clearly remembering several rules she was supposed to be following. I should inform you, she said, attempting professionalism and only partially succeeding, that physical contact between staff and patients is regulated under. She glanced at the hovering text beside her, grimaced and sighed. Under many, many rules. And yet, he said gently, lifting their joined hands a fraction, here we are. Her ears flushed again, but she did not pull away. You wouldn't let go, she said, softer now. Every time I tried, your grip tightened. At one point, you mumbled something about not being left behind again. She paused, then added quickly, I decided it was medically relevant. Of course, he said, very scientific. She laughed more freely this time, and the sound seemed to confuse the machines. One of them chimed in protest, projecting a warning symbol that looked suspiciously judgmental. She waved it away. Ignore that. It's overly dramatic. He shifted slightly, surprised that his body obeyed. The room adjusted around him, lights dimming, gravity recalibrating with a soft ripple that made his stomach flip. So, he said, alien hospital, alien nurse. Am I a prisoner, a patient, or a very expensive experiment? She tilted her head, considering. Patient, she said, temporarily fragile guest, and she hesitated, ears twitching, someone who apparently has very strong hands. He smiled despite himself. The fear was still there, coiled and watchful, but it was being held at bay by warmth, by humor, by the simple fact that in a universe full of unknowns, someone had chosen to sit beside him all night and let him hold on. Time behaved strangely after that, stretching and compressing as if the room itself was uncertain how awake he was allowed to be. Machines drifted closer, projecting soft lattices of light over his chest and temples. None of them touched him, which he appreciated deeply. He had reached his lifetime quota for being poked by unfamiliar technology sometime during the first interspecies briefing. You're stabilizing, she said, watching the shifting symbols with narrowed focus. When she concentrated, her ears angled forward slightly, as if listening to something beyond sound. Your neural patterns are still syncing with the translation matrix. That's why everything feels fuzzy. Fuzzy is generous, he said. My thoughts feel like they've been washed on the wrong setting. She smiled. Yes, that happens. One human tried to speak entirely in kitchen metaphors for 3 hours. What happened to him? He became an ambassador, she said solemnly, then ruined it by laughing. He adjusted his grip unconsciously when one of the machines emitted a sharper tone. She noticed immediately. It's only recalibrating, she assured him. No alarms, just concerned noises. Your machines get concerned. Very, she said. This one once panicked because a patient sneezed in a mathematically unexpected way. That did help. The tension loosened, unwinding enough for curiosity to slip in. So I fainted during something called neural acclimation. That sounds like a terrible spa treatment. It is, she agreed. Your species insisted on participating anyway. He frowned. We did. Yes, there was a vote, many speeches. Someone mentioned courage, another mentioned snacks. That tracks. She shifted in her chair, clearly aware of how close she was sitting now. The process allows humans to tolerate shared cognitive space with us. Languages, sensory overlap, emotional resonance. Without it, prolonged contact can cause migraines, confusion, or existential dread. Good to know, he said. I'd hate to be rude. You were not rude, she said quickly. You were unconscious, and then you were clingy. I prefer the term emotionally proactive." She laughed again, then froze, glancing toward the chamber entrance as if laughter itself might be illegal. Nothing happened. The door remained sealed, its surface shimmering faintly with security fields. She relaxed just a little. "You stayed," he said quietly, her fingers tightened around his. "It was my shift. All night, yes. Even when I refused to let go, yes." He studied her face, the way her expression softened when she thought he wasn't looking. "You didn't have to." "I know," she said. After a pause, she added, "but leaving you alone felt incorrect." The word lingered, weighted with more meaning than the translator could quite capture. One of the machines hummed approvingly, then immediately corrected itself, projecting a neutral symbol. She shot it a look. "You see," she said, "overly dramatic." He chuckled, then winced as his head protested. She noticed instantly, leaning closer. "Easy. Your brain is still stitching itself back together. Is it supposed to itch?" "No," she said, "but I'm told humans ask that a lot." They sat in shared quiet for a moment, broken only by the gentle pulse of alien technology and the faint awareness that something fragile was forming, something that didn't belong on any medical chart. When she finally spoke again, her voice was softer. "I should document your recovery," she said, "and the hand situation. Be honest," he said. "Add footnotes." Her ears warmed and she squeezed his hand once deliberately. The documentation took longer than either of them expected, mostly because the system insisted on asking questions that felt accusatory. A translucent panel hovered near her shoulder, pulsing patiently as it scrolled through prompts. She read them aloud under her breath, each one making her ears twitch a little more. "Duration of physical contact," she murmured. "Intentional or involuntary. Emotional variance detected." She stopped, sighed, and tapped the panel a bit harder than necessary. "That one is new." He raised an eyebrow. "Your paperwork judges you." "It tries to," she said. "I usually win." The panel chimed, unconvinced, but moved on. He watched her work with a kind of dazed fascination. Every gesture she made seemed practiced and precise, yet softened by small, human-like hesitations. The machines responded to her presence instantly, adjusting light levels and data streams as if eager to please. One drifted closer to him, projecting a slow rotation of symbols around his chest. "That one's checking your emotional stability," she said. "Please don't insult it." "I wasn't planning to," he said, "but now I'm tempted." The machine emitted a low, offended hum. She smiled despite herself. "See, very sensitive." A gentle vibration ran through the bed as it recalibrated, shifting him into a more upright position. He tensed instinctively, fingers tightening around hers again. She noticed, of course she did, and gave his hand a reassuring squeeze. "Easy," she said. "Nothing is going to fall apart." "Statistically speaking," he replied, "that's never comforting." Her ears angled toward him, curious. "You are afraid." "A little," he admitted. "Mostly of waking up again and finding out this was a side effect." She considered that, eyes softening. "Our sedatives do not produce shared hallucinations, especially not ones with compliance forms." "Shame," he said. "I was hoping you were imaginary. It would make leaving easier." The words slipped out before he could stop them. The machine seemed to pause, as if the room itself was listening. She stilled, then let out a breath that sounded suspiciously like a laugh she didn't fully believe in. "You humans," she said gently, "you attach so quickly." "We practice," he said. "It's a survival thing." She glanced toward the chamber door again, then back at him. "I am not supposed to encourage that. And yet," she said, lowering her voice, "you keep holding my hand." "As a medical precaution," he said solemnly. "Of course." A notification flashed on her panel. She grimaced. "My supervisor will be passing through this sector soon." "Should I pretend to be unconscious again?" "No," she said quickly. "That only made things worse last time. You tried to apologize to a light fixture. I stand by that." She laughed, then caught herself, straightening as if expecting reprimand. The door remained closed. No alarm sounded. The universe, it seemed, was allowing this small rebellion. "You are healing well," she said after a moment. "Faster than expected." "That's me," he said, "overachiever." Her ears flushed faintly, reacting before she could stop them. She looked down at their joined hands, then back at his face. "When you are discharged," she said carefully, "protocol says we should not meet again." "And protocol is very smart," he said. "Yes," she agreed, "but it does not account for incorrect feelings." He smiled, tired but sincere. "Maybe it needs an update." She squeezed his hand once more, then reluctantly loosened her grip as the machines hummed louder, insisting on their routines. Even as her fingers slipped away, the warmth lingered, defiant and real, as if daring the sterile rules of the facility to explain it away. The supervisor arrived without warning, which seemed to be a cultural preference rather than a logistical oversight. The door's surface shimmered once, twice, and then parted with a quiet authority that made the machines straighten themselves. Lights adjusted to a more clinical hue. One device cleared its data stream like a throat being politely cleared before a lecture. She reacted instantly. Her hand slipped from his as if burned, and she stood with a speed that suggested long practice at not being caught doing anything remotely human. "Senior Medician Threx," she said, voice perfectly even. The being who entered was tall, angular, and composed of far too many opinions. His skin carried a faint metallic sheen, and his eyes, three of them stacked vertically, flicked across the room, cataloging everything. When they landed on the patient, they lingered a fraction longer than comfortable. "Status," Threx said. "Recovery proceeding within optimal parameters," she replied. "Neural acclimation successful, minor synaptic fatigue. Emotional stability acceptable." The machine near the bed chimed helpfully and projected a symbol that meant asterisk, mostly asterisk. She shot it a look that could have melted softer alloys. Threx stepped closer. "Human," he said, addressing him directly. "Are you experiencing disorientation?" "Only existential," he said, "but I hear that's normal." Threx blinked, all three eyes. "Humor," he noted. "You humans insist on it." "It's either that or screaming," he said. "I try to be polite." A pause stretched. The supervisor's gaze shifted to the nurse. "Your presence has exceeded the required duration." "Yes," she said. The patient exhibited prolonged attachment behavior. "Attachment," Threx repeated, dry as vacuum. "He's very grabby," she added, a little too quickly. He chose not to comment, which somehow felt worse. Instead, he turned to the hovering displays. "Your vitals are stable," he said to the man. "You will be cleared for limited mobility soon." "That's great," he said. "I've always wanted to walk dramatically through alien hallways." Threx's eyes flicked back to him. "Do not touch anything. No promises." When the supervisor finally left, the door sealing behind him with a faint thrum, the room exhaled. Lights softened. Machines resumed their casual hovering. She sagged slightly, then caught herself, laughing under her breath. "That," she said, "was close." "I liked him," he said. "Very warm personality." She snorted despite herself. "You are impossible." "Medically speaking," he said. "Am I allowed to hold your hand again?" She hesitated, glancing at the door, at the machines, at the rules she had memorized and was currently ignoring. Then she reached out, fingers brushing his, tentative but deliberate. "Briefly," she said. He closed his hand around hers with exaggerated care. "For emotional stability." "Of course," she said, smiling. Her ears warmed, responding honestly even when she would not. Outside the chamber, protocols remained intact. Inside, something quietly, stubbornly refused to be regulated. Discharge preparations began quietly, which somehow made them louder. The machines shifted from observation to instruction, projecting slow, deliberate sequences meant for someone who was expected to leave. A band of light traced his wrist, imprinting temporary clearance markers that tingled like carbonated water. Another device hovered near his temple, politely requesting permission to finish synchronizing his memories. He agreed, mostly because it said asterisk please asterisk in 6 languages. She watched it all with an attentiveness that bordered on defiance. Each new indicator pulled her focus away from him, and then back again, as if she were memorizing the distance between now and later. "You're progressing faster than projected," she said. "Your neural lattice adapted unusually well." "Story of my life," he said. "I panic efficiently." She smiled, then caught herself and glanced at the displays. "You will be cleared to leave this sector soon. Limited access, guided routes, no unsupervised wandering. I make no promises about supervised wandering either." "That was not a joke," she said, then sighed. "It should have been." He shifted, sitting a little straighter. The bed responded immediately, adjusting its shape to support him, which felt both considerate and vaguely judgmental. "So this is it," he said. "I wake up, hold an alien nurse's hand, break several rules, and then get politely escorted back to reality." "Yes," she said. "In that order." Silence settled, heavier now. The machine near the door pulsed gently, counting down. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "There is something I should tell you." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm a big fan of warnings." "My people," she said slowly, "experience emotional responses through our ears as well as our neural centers. Heat, color changes, it is difficult to conceal." "I noticed," he said. "They're very honest." Her ears warmed instantly, proving his point. "When I am near you," she continued, "they do that frequently." He smiled, softer this time. "Mine don't change color," he said, "but my hands are apparently very honest too." She laughed, then reached out, stopping just short of touching him. Protocol hovered between them like a fragile membrane. "If I initiate contact now," she said, "it will be recorded." "What if I do?" he asked. She considered. The machines hummed, indifferent to nuance. "Then," she said, "it will be noted that a patient sought reassurance." "Sounds accurate." He took her hand. This time there was no panic, no unconscious clinging, just a deliberate choice. Her breath caught. Her ears flushed warmly, unmistakable and unashamed. "You will remember this," she said quietly. "I already do." The countdown reached its final phase. The door shimmered faintly, waiting. She squeezed his hand once, then let go, stepping back into her role with visible effort. "Go," she said, "before I decide to be unprofessional again." He stood, steady now, and paused. "For the record," he said, "this was the best hospital stay I've ever had." Her laughter followed him as the door opened, light spilling in, carrying him forward while something gentle and unresolved stayed behind. He expected the corridor beyond the medical chamber to feel colder, wider, more alien. Instead, it felt strangely ordinary, a long arc of softly lit passage that hummed beneath his boots as if acknowledging each step. Directional glyphs floated politely in the air, offering guidance in half a dozen languages, including one that had clearly been optimized by someone who thought humans enjoyed arrows far too much. He followed them anyway. His clearance band pulsed gently, opening doors before he reached them, closing behind him with quiet finality. Each seal felt like punctuation. He told himself that was all it was, just logistics. Just science doing what science did best, moving bodies from